Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another tutorial. In this tutorial I want to show you how I would take a crackling paint texture. The one we're going to use is this one right here. I want to take this texture and I want to place it right here on her cheek, almost to accentuate just how powerful her yell is at this rather oblivious gentleman. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to our paint texture. We're going to use our lasso tool and just loosely select around. We really don't need to be very exact with this right now because we're just taking this whole texture and moving it over to our other document. I'm going to go over to our layers menu and hit the add a layer mask button. Pick our move tool and we're going to click and hold and drag it over to our other image. And as you can see, it's way bigger than we need, but that's perfect. I'm going to hit Command T on the keyboard, or Control T, just move it around, and I'm going to hold down Shift while I resize it so I can keep the proportions. Just keep moving and resizing until you get it to a size that you're happy with. Now at the moment I can't really tell what size I need it to be at. I'm going to hold down Shift while I rotate, and as you can see, it keeps it in 15-degree increments. So if you ever need to turn something exactly 90 degrees, all you would need to do is just hold down Shift, choose Rotate, and there you go, perfectly 90 degrees. Now at the moment, the highlights are not hitting the way I want them to, so we're going to have to hold down Shift and rotate it around this way, and that works a lot better. Let's move it over, and before I do anything, I want to see just where I have to locate this. So we're going to lower the opacity in the layers menu to around 50%. Let me zoom in with the magnifying glass. Oops. Yes, we can apply it. It's fine. So let's zoom in. And that looks just about right. I think it needs to be just a tad smaller. So I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit so that I can see what I'm doing. We're going to hit Command T again, or Control T, hold down Shift, and just resize it a little bit more. Rotate it just a bit this way. Let's resize it a bit more. I think that looks good. So let's bring the opacity up back to 100%. And as you can see, the color of the paint obviously doesn't match her skin tone. So we're going to deal with that in just a bit. But what we need to do first is try to blend it together so we can at least get these two things to look like they're, conjoined in some way. So we're going to leave this mask the way it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a group that will allow me to use a separate mask to blend it out. So I'm going to go up to the top of the layer menu, choose New Group from Layers. We're going to name this Paint. And as you can see, now we have the layer inside of a group. If I click on the little caret, it hides it and reveals it. What we're going to do is we're going to choose this line right here, the one for the group, and we're going to add another layer mask. Now the reason why I'm showing you how to do this is because I have to do this every once in a while for things that I don't want to monkey with too much, and I'd rather keep the original as it was. If I ever screw up, I can always just delete that mask and start over again. So that's why I'm showing you how to do this. Now we're going to go to our brush tool. We're going to make sure that the hardness is 0 and that the brush size is appropriate for what we need. That seems about right. We're going to put our opacity down to about 40%. And we're just going to start erasing out around this edge. Try not to erase too much of the crackling texture. We're just trying to blend it out as best as we can. We're going to go in deeper and be more specific with it in just a minute. I'm going to bring my brush down using the bracket key. There we go. And you also want to pay attention to, the curvature of lines, smile lines, wrinkles, and things like that. So that looks all right. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so I can go into the finer details. Let's use our brush tool. Let's make it just a little bit smaller. And I'm going to hit X on the keyboard to switch it over to white so that I can bring lines back in. Let's bring our opacity down to 20% by hitting the 2 on our keyboard. And just kind of be gentle with it. Just kind of bring in little lines here and there. Things like that. Almost like if it were to continue, it would just continue cracking down her cheek. That's the effect we're going for. Switch it back to black, erase that out. Just make sure that it's nice and seamless all around. You don't want to have any hard edges. You don't want to, you don't want the edge of the image to appear anywhere. Okay, so let's zoom back out. And to show you what I meant with having a non-destructive layer, if I were to disable this layer mask, we have what we had originally. If I were to re-enable it, we've got our selection back. So that's why I like doing that, because in case I decide I don't want to use that or I need more of it, I've always got the original left alone. So we're going to zoom back in, and then the next thing we need to do is definitely we have to fix this color so that it matches her skin tone. We're going to close up that group layer. We're going to go over to the bottom of our layers menu, and let's choose, what would be a good one? I think color balance would probably work very well. Let's right click it and choose create clipping mask. And what we're going to do is we're going to mess around with these sliders just a little bit so we can try to get a color that's close enough to the skin tone that it'll blend together nicely. So what I think we need to do is we need to get some more red in here, maybe a little magenta, a little blue. Try to get rid of that greenish tone as much as possible. Let's go to the highlights. We're getting there. There we go. That's looking a lot better. It's much closer. Let's go to the shadows. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. It needs a little bit of lightening up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new adjustment layer. We're going to hit curves. And since I had selected the group, it automatically put the curves layer as a clipping, clipped to the bottom layer because it was underneath the color balance layer. So let's go to curves, and all I'm worried about is this area up here. I'm not going to mess around with the mask at the moment. I just want to see how it affects the top, and I can always bring that out later. So let's pull upwards towards the top left until we get a color that kind of matches the skin tone up at the very tippy top. We need more saturation. Bring this down. There we go. All right, there we go. So as you can see, it kind of affected everything, but we're going to deal with that right now. Hit Command I on your keyboard, and that will invert the selection. We're going to go to our brush tool. We're going to make sure our brush size is relevant to what we need. We want it to be white, and leave the opacity at 20%. That'll work just fine. So now we're just going to brush it back in to the areas that we needed to apply it to. And honestly, it was just that top part that needed to be lightened up a little bit more so it would match better. I think that looks good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our group layers. We're going to go to our paintbrush tool, make sure we have black, bring our brush size down to relatively small, maybe 20 pixels or so. Actually, it needs to be smaller than that. How about 12? We want the opacity to stay at 20%, and now this is where we start to fine tune it, where we really start to blend it out. In the areas where it's just flat texture and there's no cracking at all, you're going to want to start erasing out, just tap it. Don't be very, don't do it too much, just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. All you're doing is kind of blending in now the two layers so you get this kind of combination. As you can see, with the natural skin tone coming through a little bit better, it starts to blend in more. Go down here just a little bit and brush that out. And you know, it's up to you how much of the texture you want to keep or remove. It's all dependent on the look that you're going for. There we go. Let's zoom back out. I think that looks pretty good. It looks pretty interesting. And it definitely adds another dimension to this image. It makes it just more powerful than, you know, she's screaming so loudly that her face is breaking apart. And I just like doing interesting things like that, especially if I'm doing an abstract piece. I always try to think of different interesting ways to change the reality of the subject matter or the person or the animal or whatever it is that I'm putting into the composition. And I thought this would be interesting to show you how to do and how I do it. Hopefully it was helpful and you enjoyed the tutorial. If you want to see more of these kinds of tutorials, or if you have an idea for something you'd like me to do a tutorial on, please leave a comment in the comment section. And if you want to see more, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.